There is a mystic and holy temple of silence, the soul of the universe, where in the hush and stillness of being, the divine potency touches and commingles with substance. And from this commingling is brought forth that which shall manifest in all worlds. In its very heart is silence, the silence of intense vibration, so rapid that all seems motionless and at rest. This silence is vibrant with life, thrilling with the creative force of that which is to be. Here in the womb of creation reigns supreme the embodiment of divine love, the bringer forth of all manifestations in cosmos, nature, and man. The earth, too, has its temple of silence, in whose sacred atmosphere she perfects the miracles of that which she brings forth. Man also must find his temple of silence within his own heart, for he too is a miracle worker and must learn to know his inner self before he can become the great magician who shall perform his wonders in the inner sanctuary of the silence and bring them forth in his life. But only when man's heart is turned from evil, when his mind is free from vile imaginings, when his lips are purified even from speaking iniquity, his ears closed to tales of slander, his eyes turned from the enticement of the senses, and his feet are shod with the everlasting understanding of the indwelling of the Christ. Only then can he don the glorious robe of his strength and fully enter the great creative temple of silence. But he must begin to knock at the door of this temple at the very beginning of his conscious striving for self-mastery. For this temple has many chambers, in each of which the aspirant will find help, encouragement, and strength to push on until the inner shrine is reached. Only in the silence that is peace can we find our real self, the source of all our strength and power, the Master, whom thou feelest but whom thou hast not seen. Therefore must we consciously enter the temple of silence and do homage to the Lord of life, if of self thou wouldst be the knower. There is no problem that cannot be solved, no question that cannot be answered, if we truly enter this temple of silence and ask for guidance. For here, before the altar of this inner temple, the All-Father will send his light direct into the heart of every true worshiper at this inner shrine. Only within this temple of silence can the within receive, grasp, and understand the wireless message from the Father-Mother, from Source, from the infinite prime creator, from the divine grid programmer. Thus does the God within transmit the message to the outer consciousness. For the personal God within is the intermediary or ambassador between the impersonal, omnipotent Godhead and its earthly embodiment, the human personality. The spiritual atmosphere of the creative God consciousness, the real self of the universe, of nature, and of man, may be likened to the air we breathe. The air belongs to all alike, but is ours only to the extent that we take of it from the universal supply. All men breathe, and the air supports their animal life. But only as man learns the laws of breath and consciously uses them, does it become important factors in his higher life, as well as in a more perfect physical life. So is it with all-pervading divine essence. It becomes individualized in us only as we understand its laws and cautiously breathe into our lives. And because it is a divine principle, it contains all wisdom, all power, all life, and all love, and yields these forces to each heart to the extent that each correlates with it. Hence, it can no more be monopolized by any individual than can the air we breathe, for each has access to it. When we would enter the silence, let us think of a door opening slowly, smoothly, and silently. As it opens, see a radiant light pouring forth. As this light streams down the path, it reveals to us things of wondrous beauty, where before all was dark and desolate. We may have thought we were alone, but in this illumination, we now see the faces of our brothers and sisters, for they too are upon the path. Now we see in our fellow pilgrims earnest endeavor, where before we saw but ignorance too dense for notice. We see true brotherhood and understanding, where we saw but selfishness and pride. But let us not stop here, wonderful as this revelation of brotherhood may be. This is but the threshold. Here must we leave behind all thought and enter into realization. Thought is no longer needed. When we have entered the realm of pure knowing of divine reality, let us step across the threshold, if we are qualified, and humbly take our places in the temple of silence. We will find ourselves one in consciousness, each according to his own phase of development, with a vast multitude which no man can number, gathered from all peoples and nations and kindreds and tongues to worship at the shrine of the Christ. Some may see this glorious company of the saints. Some may hear the psalms of life, like a mighty chorus of many voices of surpassing sweetness. This choir is made up of the songs of thanksgiving and praise that each heart sings as it finds itself a worshiper in the temple of silence. Others may hear the music of the spheres, the stately rhythmic cadence of the stars and planets as they follow their appointed ways through space. Others may but feel the presence and receive the comfort of the perfect harmony and oneness of all. Still others may seem to be clasping hands with a band of fellow disciples, which reaches around the world. But all will feel the waves of spiritual life force bathing and filling them. Here will spiritual realization illuminate our consciousness, for we have become one with the knower and can drink at the fountainhead of wisdom. The silence is not merely being quiet, nor even the absence of thought, but a definite state of spiritual consciousness. If we try to enter without seeking to open the little door into the inner sanctuary, if we seek aught but the radiance of the Christ, our chamber of silence will be but a tiny cell in the outer courts of the temple of silence, cold, desolate, and disappointing. It is well to make a tiny silence chamber within our own hearts where no one else can enter. But unless we open therein the little door through which shall stream the light of the cosmic Christ, we have not yet entered the sanctuary in the temple of silence, the universal temple for all humanity, where all God's children are bathed in the essence of the Christ, united in the vortex generated by the spiral motion of the outbreathing of the divine creative force, the glorious robe of his strength. This is the seamless robe which enwraps every true follower of the Christ and which must ultimately enwrap all humanity. This seamless robe of light is not a robe of man's fashioning, for the robe of man is made of many colors and many seams. It is composed of the 7 color rays of the planetary hierarchies, modified and multiplied by shining through the influences of the zodiacal signs. For just as on earth, the one white light is broken up into its 7 color rays and becomes white again only as all are joined into one, So in humanity, each must purify and manifest in perfection his own color, and then blend harmoniously with all the others ere the seamless robe can find expression on earth. To teach mankind how to synthesize all the colors into the pure white radiance of the spiritual sun, God sent his well-beloved Son down to incarnate in matter and be clothed with the sevenfold forces of the planetary hierarchies as they manifest on earth. Yet because of his oneness with the spiritual sun, to blend all the colors and make of them the seamless robe. Everything manifesting on earth is influenced by these forces from the heavenly regions. But each soul must learn by the power of the Christ to master and blend them all. Then instead of manifesting around the circumference of his circle of life, as he advances, he draws nearer and nearer to the center where all the rays are indrawn into the pure white light of the Christ, the Sun of righteousness, the source from whence they emanated in the beginning. This was symbolized by the coat of many colors given by Jacob, the father, to his best beloved son, Joseph, but which brought only mockery and derision from his brethren. This is also the robe in which the disciple is clothed when, like Joseph, he is sold into Egypt, the darkness of earth conditions, seemingly a slave to all the influences of the outer life. Like Joseph, however, he must find favor with the king, that he may, even in Egypt, gather into storehouses the food that shall sustain his brethren through the days of famine. Then shall he be clothed in the king's robe, and wear upon his finger the signet of the king's favor, and accomplish the mission for which he was sent into Egypt. This is but another allegory depicting the descent of spirit into matter, the Christ into the darkness of human embodiment and ignorance. Instead of the robe of pure white light, in passing through the prism of matter, it is clothed in a robe of many colors, which of necessity must have many seams and joinings. We have all experienced the difficulty of blending or correlating our color teaching or aspect of truth with that of the many, many others, although we know that their colors or teachings are but differing manifestations of the white Christ light, which is always many-colored in its human expressions. One may be clothed in the colored robe of a certain planetary condition, while his brother may be clothed in a robe of another planetary condition. But as they strive for the higher life, both should seek to blend their colors, even though at best they make but a clumsy seam. We may laboriously rip out the first attempt and make the union more perfect, but there is always a seam until we learn to follow the law. The law is that the more we seek to blend our color with the source of all colors, the white light, the more we become one with all colors. Perhaps many have united with the Ombanda New Earth Ashram for Compassion and Strength with the firm determination to find the Christ within, to enter into the temple of silence and be clothed with the seamless garment which this order holds out. Here, they have found many brothers and sisters in the astral, each wearing a differing robe, each subscribed to this channel, hitting the thumbs up button, each striving to reach the goal along different lines. And they have perhaps tried to harmonize themselves with other various personalities. They may have worked ardently and taken their stitches laboriously and with painstaking care. They may have said, I will join myself to all these brothers and sisters that we may all take our places and together help to manifest in the world the robe of the Christ. But after all this is done, they may be disappointed to find that they have made themselves not a seamless robe, but a coat of many colors with many seams. To be sure, this beautiful coat must be worn as an outer garment as they descend into Egypt. But there they must don the robe of the king. They may faithfully fashion their robe, and the finer the stitches and the more invisible the seams, the more perfect the garment. But there is a more excellent way. In the center of the zodiac shines the sun. Upon the circumference, it manifests as the various colors, yet in itself it is a white radiant light. Just so in the center of the mystic temple of silence, there stands the Christ, a pure white light whose radiance shines forth to every heart, no matter how far out upon the circumference, and illumines every color with his light, life, and love. As each heart responds to this light and turns from the circumference and looks toward the center, within it finds a resting place in the temple of silence. Pure white is uncolored, and as each color approaches the white, it becomes lighter and lighter until it becomes one with its source. Indeed, instead of using the term white, it would be better to say the transparent, crystalline purity of a diamond. Thus is the coat of many colors transformed into the seamless robe of the Christ, the glorious robe of his strength. Beloved ones, dear, esteemed, honored, most notable and noble viewers, the time is drawing near when this great realization of divine oneness must have its expression in our midst. Upon the physical plane, all who are earnest and sincere in a desire to serve humanity, and who find in the Om Banda New Earth Ashram for Compassion and Strength a fitting channel for their activities, have silently pledged themselves to gather up the food that is in Egypt, to fill the storehouses of Pharaoh, that the children of men may have plenty during the years of famine. But remember that the great manifestation will not be to this order alone, to this ashram alone. There are many colors and many parts to the coat of Joseph which humanity wears. Some colors shine through brothers as far distant in body, in habit, and thought, as the east is from the west. But these brothers have for ages had access to the temple of silence and have worshipped at the shrine of the Christ. There they have been waiting patiently, humbly, ostentatiously, for their younger brothers and sisters, hoping and praying that we, like Joseph, are the ones who have been sent into Egypt to garner in the food with which to feed humanity in the days of famine. Not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. These elder brethren, who seem to have been favored in that they have remained apart from contact with the world in the seclusion of their temples and the fastness of their mountain ashrams, and have not been sold into Egypt, have not developed the peculiar qualities which make it possible to live in Egypt and gather up the corn. But they are one with us, ready to become helpers toward the establishment of the new Jerusalem upon the new earth. They are ready to give up of themselves and all they have, considering first the kingdom of heaven and striving to establish a great spiritual center, which shall be a reflection upon earth of the divine reality in the spiritual realms, the universal temple of silence. Once understand the necessity of joining the seamless robe and joining yourself to every true worshiper of the Christ, and you will not longer say, I am of the west and they are of the east. We will join and make an invisible seam in the robe. Strive to clothe yourselves in the seamless robe and enter into the temple of silence, where the manifesting power of divine divinity shall enwrap you and fill you and radiate from you, where you shall see your brothers and sisters from every nation and race and climate, bathing their souls in the divine radiance. You may ask, how shall you know your brothers and sisters from foreign lands, and how shall you correlate with them? Simply enter into the temple of silence, clothe yourself in the seamless robe and wait. And as the radiance fills you by its pure white light, behold your brother, behold your sister. No longer are they of foreign lands, no longer of different tongues, different thought, complexion, costume. They are all clothed in the seamless robe of the Christ, the glorious robe of his strength. All are filled with ardor and love and wisdom. All are resting beneath the wings of the great bird of life. Take this thought, beloved, and as the days go by and each day brings its period dedicated to the silence, open the door of your hearts and enter into the inner sanctuary and be filled with its creative silence. There you will blend in consciousness with those from all parts of the world who are worshiping at the same shrine and can commune with them. But be sure that you have surrounded yourself with the flame of divine love and protection, and that your aspiration is pure and true. For there are many false teachers in the invisible who will seek to enter the door of your consciousness, which you have opened to the higher worlds, and will seek to deceive it, if it were possible to deceive you, even the very elect. Therefore, pray ardently for discrimination, for the spiritual gift of discernment, and the guidance that is your birthright. Then you may fearlessly enter the temple of silence. Then will you know that while your brothers and sisters differ as children of men, they are not far from you, that they need not be separated from you in consciousness, even while upon the earth plane. For you have found the path and have entered the temple of silence. You have clasped hands with all, you have rested together under the seamless robe, and are soul brethren. Please hit that subscribe button. Leave this video a thumbs up if you are part of the Soul Brethren. If you wish to wear the seamless robe of the white light of Christ of all humanity, for you have found the path and have entered the temple of silence.
Namaste, Namaskaram.